Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our IACAC presentation today. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you so we can go over just a few items that are really important for you to follow along, but I do welcome you tonight. This is our virtual college exploration, and just to make sure that you participate and you feel like you're a part of the program, make sure that you take advantage of our Q&A button, which is going to be available to you. You're going to be able to ask questions directly to our panelists. And of course, your camera and your microphone is off, just to make sure that we respect our panelists and their time, and that they're able to have all the opportunity to share with you very important information that you have the privilege to receive tonight. And then, of course, if you're interested in signing up for more options, please do so. You can go to our IACAC.org website. And then, of course, this presentation is being recorded for your information. So all sessions will be available for you at the IACAC.org website. So I do want to give the floor to our panelists and enjoy the rest of your evening. And I will be back before we conclude at 6:15, so I can just do the closing remarks.
Thank you so much. All right, welcome. My name is Rachel Dorsey. I am one of the associate directors of undergraduate admissions at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. While I set up my screen, my wonderful colleagues, Jonathan and Siobhan, will introduce themselves a little bit, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Siobhan Lombardi. I'm Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions at SAIC, and I work predominantly with students transferring from 2-year and 4-year colleges and students who may have earned a prior bachelor's degree in another area.
All right, well, hi everyone. My name's Jonathan Caraco. I'm an assistant director and work primarily with Illinois-based students. I'm the Illinois Territory Manager. And a little bit of background, I guess, in terms of SAIC for me. I also was a former student there and received my MFA in 2019. So a pretty recent student and pretty recent employee, but thank you for joining us this evening.
And as I understand it, the vast majority of our viewers are going to be Illinois students and or high school counselors from Illinois high schools. So we're excited, especially to have Jonathan here and Siobhan, perfect for our transfer. So please feel free, you can take a screenshot of this screen, and then we will also show their contact information later on in the presentation. So if you are not familiar with SAIC, we are currently ranked number 2 for schools of art and design in the United States. We are also ranked in the top 10 internationally, so we know our way around art school, and that's something that is really exciting for all of us. And the reason why we're really here today is to talk about how you determine, is art school the right choice for you? If you're thinking about art school, how do you find a high quality art school? And basically going to give you a roadmap to get from 8,000 or so colleges in the United States to a short list of, ideally 5 to 10 colleges that are more manageable for you to apply in with. So the first thing that I want to address is this question of why study art at all, and why is this important, and why should this be an option for you? So most of the artists out there, I'm sure, already know the point that I'm about to talk about, which is that artists are happier, the life satisfaction for artists are generally more than the average person. And this statistic that you're seeing on the screen about arts graduates actually comes from a major national study where we followed, not we, but the Arizona State University and Columbia University followed over 100,000 college graduates. These were people who were in finance, business, medicine, everything under the sun that you can study, and artists. And they found that the arts graduates were still among the happiest within those groups. So that's a big, important thing. I know personally for myself, during this extremely difficult and trying time for all of us, my creative practice as a painter has definitely carried me through, and I hear the same thing from many of my students. The bigger question maybe is, what does this mean for not only my job prospects, but how I'm going to be valued by employers? And so we're seeing through the Association of Independent Colleges of Art and Design that creativity and innovation are among the top 5 skills that employers are going to value, and not only value, but that will increase in value over the next 5 years. And again, we're finding through this incredibly difficult test with this pandemic and other major social issues that we all need to be really creative in order to work together, build community, and adapt to our ever-changing surroundings. So this is something that art schools really prepare their students to do in spades. And even companies like Google are realizing that they can't just have programmers in the room. They need to have people who can think outside the box, and artists and designers are those people. So now that we've kind of established why you might even consider this as a path, I want to zoom back out, and we're going to go through a list of considerations as you think about schools that you're interested in, and again, shrink that list from 8,000 potential options to a much more manageable list. So we're going to start with these bite-sized questions. Where do you see yourself in school? And what type of community do you see yourself in? So obviously, you know, we have considerations like, do you want to be in a big or small school? Do you want to be in a big or small city? So again, I know most of you listening are from Illinois. You have probably been to Chicago. So Chicago is the 3rd largest city in the United States. It's a very urban environment. There are other major cities that you may consider going to school in. So things that come to mind, New York City, LA, maybe internationally as well. You have quite a few options. So you really want to think about what that means for you as an artist or designer. Some people like the serenity of being in a really rural space to really focus on their work, and there are really great rural arts communities. Other people want to be where more things are happening. So naturally for artists and designers, there are art mecca cities that are really job-focused, industry-focused cities, and that can be a real boon for students as well. And then in terms of the size of a school, so you have more intimate, small schools where you can kind of know everybody, although you may not have, you know, the same scope of resources as you might at a slightly larger school or more well-resourced school. And then you have schools that are very, very big, you know, schools that are basically cities in and of themselves, where you might be a little bit more anonymous, but you may have more resources or more options in terms of what you can study or the depth of your study. So those are 2 kind of major considerations. In terms of where SAIC sits, just to speak from experience, like I said, we're located in the heart of downtown Chicago, so you're really part of the city, walking around in the city streets, and Chicago itself becomes an extension of a teaching resource for us. And we do like to think that we have the best of both worlds in terms of the size of the school. So we're a medium to small school in general, but as an art school, we're actually one of the largest colleges of art and design, and that affords us many resources. So we're going to talk about tools and resources for artists and why that's important in just a little bit. All right, so size, big or small, location, rural or urban, important consideration. Moving to something that's slightly more specific, right? So there are all different types of schools. You're probably hearing from many of them here today and at other conference sessions. So obviously we're going to talk all about art and design schools. And then you've heard probably quite a bit about 4-year colleges, like liberal arts schools that might be less focused on art, because we are a 4-year college, but we are focused, a specialty school focused on just art and design. And then your 2-year colleges. So these are your junior colleges or community colleges. Community colleges can be a really amazing way to save money, get a sense of what you really want to study, because high school doesn't always prepare us to make those kinds of decisions. And then you can often get a reset on your GPA in high school, because maybe in high school where you have less freedom or less control over your surroundings, you may not have the bandwidth that you would as a slightly older student to focus on your studies and to take them seriously. So I really think community college is an excellent, excellent option. And there are many community colleges that are very well resourced, even within the state of Illinois, that could prepare you for a high quality art education. So I'm thinking right off the bat of the College of DuPage, for example, which has a great program, McHenry, I mean, the list goes on, and we do have articulation agreements with many of those. And if you have questions about what an articulation or transfer agreement is, feel free, pop them in the Q&A. Siobhan has an awesome list of contacts and steps that you can follow in order to pursue that path. And then really getting more specific about why would you choose an art and design school instead of or after a more traditional path, like these four-year liberal arts colleges or a community college right off the bat. And that really has to do with three major considerations that I think of as your peer group, so who you're going to be surrounded with, the curriculum that's offered. We're going to get all into curriculum because it's very important in the arts, and then the resources that you will have available to you. So getting into that first one, peer group is probably the most obvious, right? If you are in an art and design school, you are really surrounded by a focused community of artists and creative types who share a common goal, right? We're going to make things. And that's what brings us together. And that was actually probably my favorite part of being at an art school. Like Jonathan, I'm an alum of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And I was just surrounded by the most unusual, interesting, creative, and innovative people that I had ever met. And that's the community that has followed me into my adulthood. And that's something that you can get even if you're joining us at any stage, right? We talked about the transfer process. The peer group is going to be here after you spend your 2 years getting your associates or whatever it is. Then we want to talk more specifically about curriculum, which is just what are you going to study at those places. So an art and design curriculum is basically what it sounds like, right? It's more focused, maybe 2/3 focused in art and design versus maybe 1/3 academic, so your liberal arts courses. And then if you're studying a more traditional liberal arts path or a Bachelor of Science path, you're going to be spending at least 2/3 of that time focused in more academic, non-making pursuits, and you might be able to take a minor. Or of course, there are larger, well-resourced universities that might have a thriving art and design program. So you still want to look and see how many courses are available in the arts and specifically in the type of art that you want to study, and how many professors are dedicated to that particular thing. So that can kind of start to give you a sense of the depth of the study that you will be able to take at that particular place. And that exists, like I already said, in community colleges, in these universities or other four-year schools, and of course, very much so in art and design schools, because that is what we focus in. The second point here, where we're talking about something rigid versus something a little bit more flexible, this has to do with basically the roadmap of study when you get to a school. So even among art schools, there's wide variation among the curriculum that's offered and the style of curriculum that's offered. So you do want to think about, do you want something that is more regimented, where we give you sort of an A to Z map when you get in? All right, here's how you become a graphic designer, and here are all the classes you need to take along the way, versus something that has a little more flexibility or freedom. So for example, we have what's called an interdisciplinary curriculum, where you create your own path through our 18 different departments based on what your specific interests are. So students can hyper specialize if they want, but they still have the freedom to move around because we don't keep those rigid boundaries. And again, it really depends on what is going to be the right fit for you. Some students want more direction and structure. Other students are very self-directed and they know what they want to do and they know how they want to explore. So those are two things really to think about. And then the final thing here, where we're talking about resources and tools that I touched on earlier. So we, for example, as a dedicated art and design school, have millions of dollars worth of equipment. So this is video cameras, it is computer labs, studio spaces, exhibition spaces, plenty of tools that you can use. I'm sure Jonathan has good stories about stuff in the fibers department and print media and all these different things that he's been able to use in his time as when he was a graduate student at SAIC. So that is something that I highly recommend you check out, again, at any school that's on your list if you want focused study in the arts. Do they have the tools that you're going to need? And think about how those vary from the different types of study that you may pursue. So if you are going into video or film, you're going to need very different tools than a painter. So that's where doing your homework on what is available for you within those different venues is really important. Okay, I think I covered all those different things. Now we're going to get into how you determine the quality of a school. So how do you know that you're going to a school that's good and that your credits will translate into if you wanted to, for example, get a master's degree later on? Because there are some vocational schools that students may choose to go to, which can be a great path depending on what you're looking for, that don't award you credits that can then transfer into later doing a master's degree, for example. So there's a big word for what we're about to talk about. This is how we determine quality, which is accreditation. And I know there might be some higher ed folks out there listening to this or listening to the recording that know all about what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to really drill down and make it very basic and bite-sized so that anyone who's not familiar with the concept of accreditation or how you determine the quality of a college, very easy to understand. So the US Department of Education has these independent bodies that are called regional accrediting bodies. So you can think of these as, you know, judges basically. They have a long list of criteria and they go and they look at every different college, university, higher education institution, and they determine based on this exhaustive list if that school gets their stamp of approval. So you can think of it kind of like a golden seal of approval that these different accrediting bodies give to schools. And the gold standard is regional accreditation. So there are specific accrediting bodies that are assigned to different geographic locations within the United States. And for example, our regional accreditation at SAIC is through the Higher Learning Commission, which also accredits our close peers like UChicago and Northwestern. And that, again, is that check mark that says these credits will translate into other educational opportunities later. Versus, you know, taking a course of study at a school that's not accredited and then finding out later that you spent those 2 to 4 years studying and then actually can't pursue the next level of study. So really do your homework about the accreditation of the schools on your list, specifically for regional accreditation. So that's with any school, even non-art and design schools. And then for art and design schools, there's this extra layer of national accreditation. So this is given to many specialty schools. So there may be, you know, if you're specifically an architecture school or an engineering school, you may need a national level of accreditation on top of your regional accreditation. For art schools, it's through the National Association of Schools of Art and Design. So that first link on here, NASAD accredited institutions, will show you the list of art schools that have their own separate list of basically big check marks or golden seals of approval through the National Association of Schools of Art and Design. There are lots of acronyms in this presentation, so get ready. So that is one place that can really narrow down your list for art schools, is to look at this NASAD accreditation list. Another one is right below it. It is the Association of Independent Colleges of Art and Design, which is a consortium of art and design schools. The statistic that but the point that I brought up earlier about creativity and innovation being valued by employers is something that is based on a study through the ACAD consortium. And then finally, there's the National Portfolio Day Association, or NPDA, and they host virtual national portfolio days that we'll talk about in a bit, but it's another place that lists really high quality, trusted names of art and design schools. So that will help you once you feel like, okay, art and design schools are in my funnel, how you start to sort of like reduce that funnel and find the schools that are really high quality. All right, so we've talked about some bigger considerations, right? Location, curriculum, tools. We did the accreditation dance, and if you have questions about it, please bring them to us because we can help. Now we're thinking about, all right, we've got a more manageable group of schools. How do you then do a deep dive and really do your homework about each individual schools? So there's some obvious points up here, right? We've got checking out their website. that's an important one. You can find information like what their admissions requirements are. You can look up specific statistics at those different schools, like for example, their retention or the diversity of the student body, which I think is really important consideration. And then you can sort of drill down into some of these other more specific ways of getting information. So social media accounts through SAIC, we have a ton of really great social media accounts that are for different departments. Sometimes you can even get a real student's eye view through social media. So I know Instagram is a great one. I personally don't think we have anybody on TikTok yet, but rest assured we will get on there as soon as students get off. And then you can request things to be sent via snail mail, like catalogs and view books. So if you're someone who's really tactile person, you want to look at beautiful pictures and read actual words, you're zoomed out, you are websited out, then request those print things through the specific college websites. Then for art schools, in terms of at the individual level, you want to also engage with those schools directly. So there are admissions counselors just like us at other schools of art and design that might be on your lists. So I highly recommend developing those relationships with your individual counselor that you are assigned to through those different schools. And then there are other ways, like we touched on a little bit, the virtual portfolio day. So if you go to nationalportfolioday.org, which is the last link on this slide here, you can find a number of dates. I think there are like probably 12 other dates left to get one-on-one virtual portfolio reviews with tons of art and design schools. So again, let's say you have your list of art schools that you're thinking about, you might be flirting with a little bit. These conversations are a really great way to get a sense of if you're going to be the right fit for those schools, because you're getting a sense of how are they evaluating you and how are they investing in your development as an artist, which I think is really important. Obviously, too, virtual events and campus tours, and really drilling down to what's going on those different college campuses. So for example, here we have student life. So obviously for many schools, this is happening primarily in a virtual space, but you do want to get a sense of the community at each school. So asking, what are the student organizations? Do those student organizations get any type of funding or support? How are schools dealing with the need to be virtual? Because again, we don't know how long this is going to last. So that I think is really important as well. For artists, showing your work is really your bread and butter. People who make different types of things need different venues. What we're looking at right now is one of the huge student galleries that we have at SAIC. So ask your art schools or schools with good art programs, what exhibition opportunities will I have as an artist on your campus? I think that that's really important. And again, the question applies, how are they dealing with the coronavirus? Are you having still viewings? Are you creating online platforms for students to really put their work out there into the world? So that's another really big, important question to keep in mind. And, you know, schools like us, we have a really robust exhibition suite for our students, and we have also been pushing students' work into the internet in really innovative, interesting, pretty cool ways. And I think that's something we will continue to do even after we're allowed to be fully back in person with no restrictions. All right. One of our final points is talking about career services. It is extremely important no matter what you're going to study, even if you think it is a safe plan, because let me tell you, friends, I have lots of friends who chose the safe plan that are now looking for jobs or having some difficulty. So you really want to invest in good career services, whether you're an artist or designer or anything else, and try to find a school that will continue to work with you even if you do lose your job due to something like this global pandemic. So you can go back to them and say, hey, I need help, tap back into your network and have the force of all of those resources behind you. So this wall is a list of all of the different jobs that current SAIC alumni hold. So you see a bunch of different things on here. Internet marketing consultant, that was probably a good call for what is happening right now. Archivist, arts administrator, environmental graphic designer. So there are lots of different options, and artists and designers really, what's very important for us are these different resources in terms of a network that you can tap into, and especially taking internships. So ask about the internship and job opportunities at all the schools on your shortlist. Do you work with students? Do you vet your internships? Am I just going to be taking notes and doing coffee runs, or setting up the Zoom meeting before some sort of major conference that my organization is going to put on? You really want to get a sense of what you will be doing in the day-to-day as an intern, because internships that give you really good experience are extremely important. I think it's something we do pretty well. You're seeing on the screen just a few of over hundreds of employers that we work with every year who provide internship opportunities to our students. And I think the key here is that these are vetted internships. So our students are building portfolio work, they are working closely with a mentor, and getting a sense of what the field actually is like, so they can decide this is not for me, or I'm really excited about this. And as a student, if you take advantage of these kind of career services, if they are available on your college campuses, it can be really helpful in terms of giving you an edge as you go into the world. All right, so quickly going to touch on feedback, and then I want to start to wrap it up because I want to leave time for our Q&A. But getting feedback on your portfolio work is extraordinarily important if you are interested in art schools. So definitely getting a portfolio review from every school on your list is extremely important, because it can make you more competitive for scholarships and for admission. And it's a way to start building that relationship. So Jonathan, sorry to put you on blast, but because you are the Illinois counselor, I highly recommend anyone out there listening, if you are an Illinois student, Jonathan is wonderful. He's an incredible artist and such a wonderful mentor. Getting that feedback from him, I think, will be really important and helpful for you. And we also have alumni and faculty who can do that as well. So you can sign up for a virtual review with that link at the bottom, saic.edu/UG virtual review. We are also, so something I want to encourage you to look at when you do those individual deep dives on your school websites is what programming is available to me during the global pandemic that is safe for me to consume from home. So I've been really excited actually by what different art schools are doing. I think we're doing a great job, but I think a lot of other schools are also really hitting it outside of the park because we are creatives. So please check that out. You know, you can sign up and get the recordings from different webinars. What you're seeing on the screen right now is our Portfolio Tip Tuesdays. With every Tuesday, we are having virtual webinars all about the portfolio. We try to keep them short and sweet. And then we do a really long Q&A at the end. So if you have portfolio questions that you don't get answered at the end of this presentation, check out our Portfolio Tip Tuesdays. And then finally, if you're interested in applying to your different schools, so let's say you've got that list down to that 5 or 6, you want to really do a deep dive and find out what are the application requirements for each school. It is different for each school. You want to really closely read the specific requirements. So for art school, what is really, really key is finding out the different portfolio requirements. So what are you going to submit as your artwork to represent you at each school? And the secret sauce is really no two schools are exactly the same in what we are requesting for the portfolio. At SAIC, we want to see ideally a cohesive body of work that shows us who you are as an artist and who, like, what you are most excited about. And it's very individualized. So the only requirements are 10 to 15 images of your choice and or up to 5 minutes of time-based work. But other schools might need technique-based work, or they might really want a variety of work. And it's really key to look those up and have those conversations. And then just to leave you off quickly with a roadmap for what, you know, this next couple of months can look like for you if you are a college senior. Applications are already open. They opened up this summer. The virtual portfolio days and other virtual engagements are happening now. So I highly recommend checking those out. The FAFSA opens up on October 1st. And if you are an Illinois resident, there is something called the Illinois MAP grant that is a declining balance. So you do want to apply for FAFSA support early and often. So this is the free application for federal student aid. Then early deadlines tend to be November, December. You also tend to get the highest scholarship amounts at those early deadlines. So I do recommend checking those out for the schools on your list if finances are a concern. Later deadlines are usually mid to late winter, final deadlines mid-spring. And then you usually know what your offers are going to look like by mid to late spring. And definitely closely look at your financial aid packages in combination with any scholarship you may have been offered. And typically you make the decision of where you're going to go by May 1st. All right, so I am going to open up to Q&A, and Jonathan and Siobhan, if you want to pop back on here with me and unmute yourselves. And I just want to also say thank you so much to anyone who was listening or watching this recording. We really love doing this work, and we hope to connect with you soon. All right, do we have anything in our Q&A? No, it looks like not
yet.
Well, I will wait a few minutes. But in the meantime, Jonathan or Siobhan, is there anything that you want to add about the college selection process that you think is important or get into more detail about that we touched on?
One thing I would look at too, if you have an opportunity in an art school, look at the student and faculty work as well and see if it aligns with work that you're attracted to. I know when I was applying to graduate school, I was in a specific situation where I was a little older as a student. So I wanted to know the age of the student body, and I wanted to see what the faculty work looked like specifically. And it's really look at the breakdown, like where is the student body from? Are you looking for people from your nearby community, or are you looking for fellow students who come from a broad spectrum of the map or internationally? So look at just sort of the basic information about the breakdown of the student body and the faculty body. Also look at the breakdown of faculty to student ratio is a good thing to look at.
And then I would say another thing that I find to be pretty helpful, especially if you're interested in a school, is finding ways to connect to the students that are currently attending. At SAIC, we have our student ambassadors. I help kind of manage the student ambassadors. It's one of my other hats in my job here. So if you just want to reach out to me, while I also am the Illinois counselor, we can connect you with one of our student ambassadors who can speak on specific areas that you might be interested in. So if you're someone who has a really big passion for something like animation, we have a student ambassador who is currently fourth year in the animation department, so they can definitely have a quick chat with you, talk about what it's like to be on campus as a student, what it's like to live in Chicago as a whole. So always look that up. It's actually much easier and less intimidating than you think to connect to current students, for sure.
That's a great point, Jonathan. I think that will give you the best sense, because schools can put their best foot forward and tell you what they're like. You know, that's our job, right? It's everyone's job who works in admissions across the United States. But you really want to get that bird's eye view and the real experience from the students who go there about what it's like today. Because even Jonathan and I, for example, could talk about, and actually, Siobhan, are you an alum? I don't know that.
I'm sort of an orphan child. So I'm one of those people that started out at a huge state university. And as an art major there, which was relatively one of the small departments, really got lost. So I transferred to a small liberal arts college where every one of my art faculty members were graduates of SAIC, and many of them are teaching at SAIC now. So I'm sort of like an illegitimate cousin.
Got it. Okay, so we could all talk about our experiences in the ether of SAIC teaching and learning, but the students that are there now are going to give you something more specific to what you would experience. So that's a really excellent point, Jonathan. And also, Siobhan, I feel like you should give this presentation, because everything you're talking about is so important. And I do notice that students who are really motivated to go to art school and maybe have bandwidth to check out different details about schools will start to look up the faculty. And really keeping in mind, if you're an undergraduate student, looking at the faculty who work with undergrads, because sometimes schools will highlight these amazing superstar faculty members that only work with graduate students. So that's important to keep in mind. I actually had a pretty good experience at SAIC. I got to work with Michelle Grabner and Shane Campbell, who both are gallerists and artists, and Michelle Grabner specifically co-curated the Whitney Biennial in 2014, which is kind of like the, you know, contemporary art Olympics, I guess. I don't know how you would characterize it, but kind of. And I got to do a study trip with her when I was an SAIC student and had really great one-on-one access to her. So I found that that was pretty helpful, but there are other faculty members that only work with grad students, so that's important to keep in mind. We've got about 10 minutes left before our session closes. So I'm wondering too, any thoughts that came up for you or conversations you've had with students where you've helped them kind of talk through what the right fit is for them?
I can add one because I think that while this is something that's pretty future oriented, it's something, at least when you're looking at SAIC, that you can kind of daydream about or wanderlust about, which is our study abroad trips and things like that. I know that that was something when I was looking at undergrads where I went for undergrad, one of the kind of requirements to graduate is that you would go on a study trip. And we have something similar like that at SAIC. While it's not necessarily attached to studying abroad or going on a study trip, it's an off-campus credit amount that you'll be fulfilling either through one of those trips or like an internship. It's also kind of good to just get a sense of where you could go in, like, I don't know, kind of an exciting way. Especially now, I think that daydreaming is like a great way to just kind of like get through this very strange time that we're in. And we have really incredible trips. I know a lot of my friends actually went on quite a few of them. Well, I didn't go on one, unfortunately. A lot of my friends have spoken extremely highly about the trips that they did go on through SAIC that kind of range between like India, Japan, Peru. The Peru trip is the one that I've heard like amazing things from. If you're a fiber artist, that's an amazing place to go. But definitely look into kind of these extra little things that you maybe don't think about originally or, you know, at this stage, but I think that in some ways it's really helpful to understand what's the possibilities that I can take advantage of at this school. We talked about things like galleries and taking advantage of some of the spaces to exhibit your work at SAIC, but also these additional programs that we have, such as study abroad or study trips, I think is worth looking into as well.
Oh, great. And actually, Jonathan, that reminds me of something I meant to mention when we were talking about location, because like I was talking about SAIC, we're right in the heart of downtown, like hustle and bustle, usually every day. It's a little more empty now because people are being careful and taking precautions. But we also have an off-campus affiliate called Oxbow, which is in Saugatuck, Michigan, where students can kind of rehab a little bit from city life and, you know, go canoeing and be in nature, which is really nice. And there are other schools too that have affiliations with residency programs. And residencies are another thing to think about as you think about like professional development, I guess, as an artist, or developing your practice, creative development and networking, because it is another path forward outside of just getting a job or going to graduate school directly. And Jonathan, too, you reminded me, I went on a study trip to Italy, Monte Castello, Italy, where I had a private 24-hour studio and the windows literally opened out into what looked like a Renaissance painting of the Italian hills. It was extremely beautiful. And it was also right next to the kitchen, because they made us 3 square meals a day. So it would be like these beautiful Italian pastas and, you know, like very fresh eggs in the morning, just like really just once in a lifetime experience that I think, I don't know if I would ever have found my way there if I hadn't been in our program.
Yeah, I can speak on Oxbow a little bit if we have time. Just because I didn't go on a study trip, but I did go to Oxbow. I was actually a resident there, so it's a little bit of a different experience because it's much more about like you having your own time in the studio, and you having your own time to like move through your thoughts and apply that into work. But it's probably one of our most accessible partnerships, if you will, that we have with another location, because a lot of our students actually end up pursuing a class to take at Oxbow, whether it's in the wintertime or the summertime, and they will get credit for those classes that can transfer into SAIC. So that's one thing to keep in mind, but it's also like an incredible place to also get out of the city. And I know that that was something that I thought about because I kind of have grown up in like a more rural context in Wisconsin, and being in Chicago for 2 years, there's a lot going on all the time, and it's nice to just kind of get away and have that space to move through your thoughts, like I was saying, with your practice, but also be re-inspired in ways that you don't expect. So definitely look into that too.
And actually I did Oxbow as well, but where SAIC summer school takes place. But I also, my college had a relationship with SAIC. So I was a Byron Smith scholar and went with SAIC to study Japan. So the summer after I graduated from college. So I was particularly studying painting and some of the materials that go into painting, while a lot of the students were studying fashion. But we went to see where they were fermenting indigo and seeing weavers who were national treasures of Japan and everything. So it was pretty remarkable and wonderful.
That is super cool, Siobhan. Well, it looks like we have about 4 minutes left. So as a closing thought, again, I'm super excited for anyone who is either tuning in or watching this later as a recording. It is an exciting but also probably scary time if you're considering your future, especially with all the uncertainty. So if you are interested in SAIC, we would love to be partners in that process for you to continue to think about fit and where the right place is for you, and also to help you be competitive in the admissions process if you do choose to apply. I love working with my colleagues who are incredible wealth of knowledge, and we will be back, I believe, for another session in a couple of weeks through IACAC, and we are really excited. Any closing thoughts from Jonathan or Siobhan?
Just stay in touch. Don't be afraid to reach out to us.
I agree, Siobhan. I agree.
Okay, great. I'm going to stop my share. And then I guess we are able to exit. Is that?
No, I'm going to go ahead and just let people know a couple of things that they can actually know about. So as we are closing, we do want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. And after you close this window, there will be a quick survey for you to complete. And of course, there are more sessions. So if you do want to hear from our presenters tonight, once again, please go on to iacac.org and sign up. Or if you want to hear from other institutions, please do that as well. And as a reminder, we are recording this. But we do thank you for being here tonight, and we do wish you a really good night and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.